All right, so back with another episode. Today, I'm joined by Zach Murray, who's the founder of Foreplay, a SaaS product that fits into the creative process. And of course, we'll be digging into more detail about that. For those who aren't familiar with yourself, Zach, or Foreplay, what's the quick background story?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like the product, we started as like a very simple Chrome extension to just save ads, and we've evolved into just being like the place that performance and creative teams go. Specifically, they're running Facebook ads, TikTok ads, pretty much any digital channel. The place they go for ad creative inspiration, building swipe files, mood boards to inform their upcoming campaigns, and just like centralize like the whole team, specifically the performance team and creative team, to just ship more winning ads. And yeah, it's evolved into like a full product with like inspiration. There's like a community feed. We have the Chrome extension, briefs. We have a full spider like spy tool now for Facebook ads. So yeah, that's pretty much the product as it sits right now.
Nice. Yeah, I saw the spider feature come out. I wouldn't say recently. Time's flying by, so it's probably not that recent at all. But that's a real interesting one, and I'm sure we can get into that. So let's rewind a bit. What were you doing before, Foreplay the product?
Yeah, before Foreplay the product, so like long story short, I like started my career as like a creative. I was like into design. I thought I wanted to be like a documentary filmmaker. I had like all these like creative pursuits that I thought, as a young person that I wanted, but I also really, love money and business, and like documentary filmmaker and like that usually don't mix. And so I went away to university, dropped out after 2 years, and then kind of started off as like a freelancer, small agency doing, creative projects, whether it's like it was websites. I did a lot of video production style work. And then I built a motion design agency. That was like my first real business. We did a lot of motion design for software companies. So like animated videos, launch videos, things like that. And then I met this guy that was doing drop shipping like in 2019. And I was like, wow, this is the most amazing thing. I was going from like a service business to being like, oh, I could just, find a product, sell it online, and make endless amounts of money. And so we built a brand called Nomadic Fabrics, me and him. And at the same time, we had built up a performance agency at the same time called Foreplay. Since then, we sold the brand. I bought him out of Foreplay before it turned into a software company. And then in 2021, completely pivoted to obsessing about building software in the niche of, performance advertising and creative. I feel like I had these like two sides of my brains and two sides of my past, which was like this like creative person doing agency like work, and then also running a lot of paid traffic. And there's a lot of disjointed stuff there. And so I thought of our very simple first tool, which was Foreplay. And then I had about a 1.5 year stint while I was starting Foreplay. I was also the head of product design at Triple Whale, where I learned a lot about this like this whole community, the whole like niche of like SaaS in this space. They're venture backed, we're bootstrapped. It was like this really amazing time in my life where I got like, it was very much just like eyes wide open, like absorb as much as I can. And it definitely, it like planted a ton of seeds in me while I was like building Foreplay, things to do, things to avoid. And that was really great.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting story. I've always, because we've spoken before. I've always seen you as like a very creative person. I remember you talking about you have this ambition to create a coffee table book. I can't remember what it was going to be specifically. I think it might have been like vintage ads. Mm-hmm. And funnily enough, so the Foreplay t-shirts, the t-shirts you sold, I bought like a couple, and I wear them every week. So like even I've had probably a handful of people, and bearing in mind I've been just traveling around Europe for the last 12 months, I've had random people come up to me and compliment me on the t-shirts. And one of them, I think I told you about this actually, one of the t-shirts, somebody was like, they recognized the logo, and we ended up going for dinner together, and he was in like
no fucking way, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool, dude. That makes me like so happy. I mean, touching on that, I mean, like I am like a hyper creative person, and like I think my whole life I've had this, there are like two sides of me that definitely like they like bump heads consistently. at the end of the day, like I feel the most fulfillment and joy if like at the beginning of the day something didn't exist and at the end of the day something existed, that did not exist at 9 a.m. And so I just like I default to just like making things, which I think is good. And but then there's also those days when you need to like dive into like business admin type stuff, which like nobody likes. But I would say like for me, it like drains me in like a special kind of way, because like even if I have like a really really productive day doing that stuff, I lack any sort of feeling of like accomplishment at the end of the day. And so yeah, it's like an interesting spot, but I mean it's fun. And the merch projects, we have a bunch of stuff coming out this summer that I think is like fun and cool and funny, that I'm really excited about. And yeah, it's cool when you can have all these like little side quests that still like funnel up to like the business. Like I really just wanted t-shirts with vintage ads on them. I fucking love vintage ads. And so it's like, oh, like thank God I have like a ad software and we can make these t-shirts. And it was a cool project. And I wish I had more time for it. But yeah, we have some stuff coming up this summer.
Yeah, it's good. It's something that, like, if you're building any kind of business, you need to be able to, show up for years, maybe decades, and stuff like that. Keeps the spark alive. As someone who's like inherently creative, then how how did you end up building a software product? Like, I assume you're a non-technical founder. Like, how did you build the product? Did you go down like the contractor route? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll just touch on the reason why I built a software product. And it was, I'm an avid lover of software, as like a user. And there's like so many softwares in my life that I got introduced to them, I learned them, and they ended up like either putting money in my bank account or allowing me to make something. And I had like so I had like a weird emotional connection to like, like the Adobe Creative Suite and like all of these things that was just like, there was just these like programs I could download on my computer and like learn skills to make money. And like, that was like always a magical thing for me. And I've always been super interested in just like listening to founder interviews, and the ones that, were always the most exciting to me and always the most interesting were the software founder interviews. And so I always wanted to create a software product. Like, it wasn't like, oh, this is my next thing, or I think that this is a really good opportunity. Like, deep down, like, those were the founders that I looked up to. And so like, I wanted to kind of like build something in that arena. In terms of actually going from like the idea into like building the first product, I've been like incredibly curious my entire life. And so like I had like a stint as a UI designer for like a fantasy sports app for like 2 years. And so the first thing I did was just like, I designed the first version of the app end to end without building any functionality by myself in Figma, building prototypes, and like worked through like 5 iterations of the first version, which was still horrible. And then the first version was built by like a freelancer in Argentina. It was like $5,000. Found him on Upwork. He disappeared. And then, I got introduced to kind of our lead developer now, probably like 4 or 5 months in. But yeah, that's kind of how we went from like 0 to 1 in terms of product. It was me designing the entire thing end to end, and then using, freelancers to build like the first product.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Yeah, I think a lot of similar route that most people go down. I mean, I think finding like a CTO / technical co-founder, personally, I think it's probably the best route, because someone can, like, when you're non-technical, it feels like sometimes engineers are just speaking a different language to you. And it's hard to verify if what they're saying is true, or the quality of their code and stuff like that. And I think if you have a CTO / co-founder, they can sort of own that. But finding a co-founder is like finding a partner you want to marry, right? It's not a small decision, and it's not something that we can all just do at the click of fingers. So I think going down the contractor route is what most people do.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. So when you, let's say you had version 1 of Foreplay, or, whenever you went public with it, how did you get like the first 10, handful / 10, 20 customers? How did you get them?
Yeah, I mean, I still remember, like, so our first customer was a friend. It was someone who, his name's Alan Porter. He kind of like informed some of the product really, really early on. He's like, oh, I really need to. He's like, hey, what do you think about this idea about like saving ads for Facebook ad library? And it wasn't really a product. It was like a little widget. It was like a little tool. And so he was like our first like, paid customer, which was really cool. In terms of going from like that 1 until 10, a lot of it was just like DMing people on Twitter. I pretty much had like, I don't have like a big Twitter following even now, but like I had 0 Twitter following then, but just like putting it in front of people. And then, the time when it actually felt like we were acquiring customers that wasn't just like straight hand-to-hand combat and begging, was just like I wrote, a blog article, how to save ads for Facebook ad library. It ended up ranking, and, we started getting like 1 customer a day, 2 customer a day. And then there was like a whole, and then from there, it was just like a bunch of stuff. I mean, like attribution for like where people come from for your software is like, I mean, I have no idea even to this day. Like I have a very like shaky compass on where those things come from. But we were listed on the Chrome web store, like all these places where people are searching for things, we ranked really highly. And so that was kind of like the actual first cohort of customers where they came from.
Got it. Yeah, I like that hand-to-hand combat. I've never heard that one. So how long would you estimate from like going public to that, let's say, that change in momentum where it changed from hand-to-hand combat to, daily customers? Like how long would you estimate that timeline to be for you to really start
Like
feeling
6
that pull?
months. Like 6 or 7 months, maybe a little bit more than that, actually, like probably 8 months, to where I was like, there's a predictable new customer, like not free trial, coming in once a day. And then from there, it was like 10, 20, and kind of has been going up from there. But yeah, it was probably 8 or 9 months before it felt like, okay, there's a lot of people coming in now that I had no idea where they came from, or it was coming from a referral from someone who else was a customer, and it started to start feeling like a flywheel. Where it actually felt like it was like turning into a real business was probably about a year.
I mean, that's relatively quick, to be honest, like based on what I hear from other companies. What would you say was some, I know you said you posted this this blog post, but what else was going on through this period? And I guess this is a bit of a loaded question, right? Because my assumption tells me that you're more suited to companies in like the e-commerce industry. At least that's just what I've seen online. And there seems to be this like sort of community in e-commerce where there's this sort of online community where people are close. And obviously, you worked at Triple as well. Was there anything going on there, like community-wise, or did you partner with any brands? Like, was there anything going on there?
We never did any like partnerships really early on. I mean, there was like a few people, like, and I'm talking like less than 10 that I were just like brands that I would really wanted them to like use the tool and give feedback that I would give a free account to. I've been always very against giving away a software for free, even to influential people. And it's also why, like, when I hear some people say it's good to like launch your product first for free and then get traction and then add a paywall, and like I couldn't disagree with that more, at least for B2B software, because like I've always just been very mindful that like the feedback that comes from people who pay for your thing is a magnitude more valuable than someone who didn't pay for it asking you to do something. Because in software, there's like when you're building the product, there's a million times when there's a bunch of stuff that would be nice to have and nice to build, but that doesn't mean you should build it. But if you have someone that's already paying for your thing, you've already got value from them, and they're like, hey, it would be really great if it did this. You're building in that channel, in that column of like people who are willing to like pay for your thing, and you're prioritizing the right things. And And so I got a little sidetracked there, but so that, yeah, we did like a few gifted accounts, but I'm actually very much against it. Um, and then in terms of other stuff going on, yeah, like I was working at Triple Whale that introduced me to a lot of this e-commerce, sort of community. It's heavy on Twitter. I mean, we do have like, it's definitely like a large part of our customer base. I think it's probably still a majority, but it's getting close to where it's not. I mean, we have like, at the end of the day, our TAM is anybody running Facebook ads. We're in this like transitional shift where creative is the only thing that matters. It's not even a shift anymore. We're just fucking living in it. It's like creative is all that matter. We're at the maturity of the ad platform. And so we have like a lot of lead gen. We have a lot of apps in gaming. Agency is large for us. And so we grew out of the e-commerce niche bubble pretty quickly. I still want to continue to grow more outside of it, because I actually think there's a lot more meat on the bone outside of e-commerce than directly inside of e-commerce. I think when you look even at the most successful e-commerce specific software companies, they all seem to hit a ceiling. I mean, you even see this even more with like Shopify apps, right? Like Shopify, like only I think it's like 2 million stores and if you're building an enterprise product, there's like, I don't know, like maybe 2,000 to 5,000 like plus customers or something. Like, it's like it's incredibly small like pool if you like think about like the entire like market. And so yeah, at the time there was other stuff going on, but I would say, and like that was like a nice little like pod to grow in and a niche to grow in initially, but and again, I'm not like throwing it to the curb, and like we're still like actively investing and growing in that space, but I think it's just opened our eyes as we've just grown organically that like there's a lot more out there outside of this little bubble.
Yeah, interesting, and it's good. I mean, it's diversification as well, right? Like I log into Twitter most days, and there also seems to be this at the moment this sentiment where, I don't know, maybe I've got it wrong, but some negative sentiment towards like SaaS tools in like the Shopify / e-commerce ecosystem. And I think ultimately it boils down to e-commerce brands typically have very low margins, and so every expense has to be questioned. And as a vendor, that's a potentially a risky game to play, right? Because it's going to affect your user retention. So it's not a bad idea to diversify, where your customers are coming from. You said something interesting there about, prioritizing paying customers, like not giving the product away for free, because, well, paying for the product is true validation, and that's who you want to build the product for. I believe you're bootstrapped. Is that right?
Yeah.
What's the philosophy there? I'm sure someone like you seem like well connected. Probably could have easily raised money. You've had successful past ventures. How come you chose to go down the bootstrap route rather than raising money?
I think the status quo is you build software and you raise money. It's because we lived through this era where like money was very, very cheap. And like a lot of really great companies got built like that. The reason why I didn't was, one, like at the time that I was starting to build a company, I wasn't trying to build a really big company. That's changed now. Right now I'm trying to build a very large business. At the beginning, I was like, I just want something that pays me like 20 grand a month. Live like a decent life. I was off the back of like e-commerce, which was like an entire grind. I was like all of our money was going into inventory. It was like, this is like, let's build like I was just like in a spot in my life where I just wanted to build a healthy business. And the best way to do that is bootstrap. Like you literally can't do that if you raise any sort of capital. And so that was the original plan. And so venture didn't fit into that. I also have like a very close friend who we both know, Steven, who like has bootstrapped a business to like a meaningful size, who like stayed bootstrapped. And I think that was honestly like a pretty important piece for me staying bootstrapped, because I had this like person like in my like circle that's like, if he did it, I can do it. And I'm like super grateful for that. And I guess the answer now too is like, why are we staying bootstrapped? People say like, oh, if you don't have $1 billion outcome, you shouldn't raise venture. I believe that to be true, and I believe a lot of people that say that they say it and don't actually believe it. I think a lot of founders get to a point where it's getting very hard. They maybe see like some sort of opportunity, they need and they justify needing capital to not have to like weather that storm to go and like go down that path. But I think if you like actually hook them up to a lie detector and be like, did you actually think there's $1 billion outcome here? I think the lie detector would like call bullshit, like 100%. Because if you actually back end and like reverse engineer the mechanics of $1 billion outcome, I don't think you can justify it in like the case of like 99% of situations. And I think like our current situation right now is like, and right now it's like, it would be incredibly easy for us to raise money. Like I still take the calls with like the VCs that, you know, reach out, because like, it's not bad to have the call. And like you said, like maybe in the future, if I do another thing, or if there's a time when I do see a very clear path to $1 billion outcome, you know, having these people, you know, at a phone call versus like having to do outreach is like important. But yeah, we could easily get like a ton of money right now, like a very, you know, favorable sort of like rate. But again, we've built a very healthy business that's growing well. I talk to venture-backed friends that don't have the growth rate we have, and they're spending time writing investor updates. They're getting pressure. They're not building 100% in alignment with them. Like there's a price for everything, right? And like capital was never free. Like you give up your business, but there's a lot of other things on that, like in the line items of raising money that people don't account for. And I just prefer a life right now where I don't have any of that. Will that change in the future? Potentially, right? Like strong opinions loosely held. If like the market changes in front of me and I see like an incredible opportunity where like venture seems to be the most likely scenario for our success, then that would be what I would do. But otherwise, I avoid it like the plague. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
No, I like that. I like that mentality. I think, I think the way it should be approached is build a company that doesn't require external capital to survive, but you know, it should always be on the table. Like if you need to
That's
expand,
the
you
other
need
piece
to.
too, right? Like as a business, I like scared. I'm like scared to even like say this out loud, but like we're indestructible. Like I don't need to go raise any money. It doesn't matter what the market is. Like we're profitable and we're growing. Like so at the end of the day, it's like it's a self-sustaining thing that now is just like something, and it's like a machine that I can now optimize and try to make larger with the cash flow. And I just think it's like, I don't know, like when you bootstrap a company, it's so much more important to make good decisions. And like I understand the venture model, which is like you're funding the ability to make poor ones, but I don't know, like like again, there's times when that makes sense, but I do sometimes think it swings the other way, where it's just like it becomes the norm to make poor decisions because we're testing things or because we're need to deploy capital. But like I don't know, I have a ton of pressure to make really good decisions, and I think like because that pressure is there, I make more good decisions. And so yeah, I don't know, it's the way I like to do it. And if we can stay bootstrap forever until exit, then you know it's better for me. It's more enjoyable during the process. I do think like if whatever I do next, I might raise money just because I think I'll have like so much stored knowledge about making good decisions that like just like you know I can like speed that up. But yeah, I don't know. I'm enjoying it, and I implore anybody if they're like, should I raise money? Should I not raise money? Just like see if you can do it without it. Like try your hardest. Like, but like also like burn the boats. Like don't keep it on the table. Like, you know, just like give it your all to not raise money. I think it increases your likelihood of success, at least, especially as like a founder and like getting some sort of positive outcome for yourself.
No, I like that. Good perspective, definitely. So something you said there, you said when I got started, you know, I just wanted to make like 20K a month. So basically, a bit of a lifestyle business. And then you said something changed. You want to now build like a really big business. What do you mean by that? And how has your mindset shifted with regards to what levers you need to pull to get you to that new goal that you have now?
The only thing that changed is I started making $20,000 a month, and it wasn't enough. There wasn't anything that really changed. I mean, I do think too. There's you can have a lot of conviction with no product and no revenue, but it's not as much conviction as you have with a good product and revenue. And so, as my conviction has grown with the business, my aspirations for it and my conviction of its outcome have grown kind of linearly with it. I'm also not a person where, the whole idea, I just want to make $20,000 a month. I think I prefaced that by saying I was at a time in my life. That's not necessarily who I am as a person, and that wasn't who I was before, and that's not who I am now. I was in this chapter of my life where it was also COVID. I was traveling. I was very much living a very chill lifestyle. And so, yeah, it was just a time. And then again, it's strong opinions loosely held, and things changed. And now also it's a piece where you put all of your time, you put all of your effort into something. And so to not try to make it as big as possible seems like squandering my life. And I think there's a lot of people that would disagree with that. It's oh no, you can just live your life and enjoy it. And but I actually get all of my, I was saying before, all of my fulfillment from going from something not existing to something existing. And it's, as you do that over and over again, the thing you create needs to become more impactful than the last thing, at least for me to feel it. And so inherently to just fulfill my desires for fulfillment, I need to create a really big business to just feel good about life. Yeah, again, now at a different chapter of my life where I'm not really traveling. I'm not living a really good lifestyle. I could live a much better lifestyle than I do right now, but I'm again at a spot in my life where that's just not what's bringing me joy. And what is really shooting to build a big business with a big outcome for everybody involved.
Nice. I like it. The pursuit of excellence, right? If you can get to milestone 1, why can't you get to milestone 2 and then 3 and then 4? Right. A blessing and a curse. So fast forward to today. I know you said there are some, let's call it attribution problems. Attribution is a nightmare, right? But how is Foreplay mostly growing? Where are most of your customers coming from?
The actual answer is a horrible one. Because anybody that says this, I remember when I would listen to it, be okay, whatever, what does that mean? And I'll try to clarify it. The answer is word of mouth. But word of mouth actually isn't an acquisition channel. Because word of mouth is a result of product. And so right now we're going through really good product that people talk about really organically and share. A lot of people think that we pay a lot of the people to talk about us, and we don't. SEO, which we're doubling down on. We run a little bit of paid, but nothing meaningful. It's not a set CAC where we know how many customers. It's just honestly a tax I feel we're paying to Google and Facebook. And then partnerships have now kind of become a more meaningful part of the business, whether that's agency partnerships, publishing partnerships. And then we've tried this a few times and failed. I have a lot of conviction in it now because of some of the new product that we're building, and some of the people that we've installed, but we're building a full direct sales motion. And so that's had a little bit of an incremental lift, but again, we've strapped that onto the business, but we haven't strapped it onto the part of the business that I'm most excited about, which we're building right now. And I think once we have that new product, bolting on sales to that, I think will be what takes us from where we are right now, which is single digit millions into 8 figures. So Yeah, that's kind of how we're growing now. We have a bunch of experiments that we're going to be running this summer. A lot of like moonshot marketing ideas that definitely are not in any SaaS growth playbook, but we're going to give it a shot. And yeah, that's pretty much how we're growing right now.
Got it. What? So you said you're doing some direct sales, and there seems like there's a master plan that's about to unfold there. What does your org structure look like at the moment? Like, what's the team size, and does growth still solely rely on you, like your inputs on a day-to-day basis, or do you have like a team now responsible for that?
So our team size is about 11 right now. Most of the development team is in-house in Toronto, as well as like operations and stuff like that. Customer services overseas, as well as some just other roles like design and stuff like that. In terms of core go-to-market marketing, currently I am doing all of it. Pretty much anything you see from Foreplay that is public facing, I did at least 95% of it. From like our website to any video or anything. That's obviously not sustainable. We need new growth channels. I think we're at, and it's something I'm trying to figure out right now, where I've found myself being like a very capable Swiss Army knife. And all of these things are like very small drops in the bucket. To install a whole person on any of these, we're like not really ready for it, right? And so like and we're actually in this like weird flux where it's like if I knew that like I don't know, fucking YouTube videos were like our number one like organic growth channel, I would like install like a full time kind of like content like head of content. But it's like, oh, that's like it's meaningful, but whatever. So I'm currently trying to identify the area of growth that has the most opportunity to like one take off my plate where I think someone else could excel at it. I mean, SEO was one of those things we ended up outsourcing it, but yeah, trying to do that more and more because I still also like spend a lot of time on product. I spend probably 50% of my time on product, 50% of my time on marketing, and so yeah, I mean that I would say that's our biggest problem right now is like we need to start building a go-to-market team around myself.
Got it. Makes sense. You jogged my memory there. Are you so you have an office in Toronto, right? So you've got 11-person team. Is everyone in office? Do you have like remote?
That's seven. So 7 people are in Toronto in office. 6 or 7 are in Toronto in office. Anybody that's associated with the core product is in office, and that's kind of like my ethos around it. And the people that are not in office, it's either for the reason that I think it's distracting to have them in office. For example, like customer service, it's like it's kind of a distracting thing for like the customer service to be around with like developers. Like maybe there'd be like if we had a massive office where like customer service is like on a different floor and they can come up and like talk to developers and like maybe that'd be valuable. But like realistic and like same with like sales, like our salesperson is like close to Toronto but not in office every day. He comes in once a week. Yeah, like having someone just like run demos all day like in the background, like kind of distracting to build a good product. And so the whole idea is the office in Toronto is focused on product and like go to market and marketing and like things like customer service, sales, and like these other things you strap on to the thing that matters most to us, which is a PLG company, is product, is in-house, face-to-face.
That's interesting because I think one thing is having an office. That's one thing which is sort of become uncommon, I would say, just for like the space we're in. But the second thing is having your product team in office because there's this kind of meme, right, where engineers are just locked away in a cupboard, coding for 12 hours a day. I actually remember seeing you uploaded an image on Twitter, like where you was charging the engineers with red light. That was hilarious. How I mean, how has that been? Because I imagine like productivity has just skyrocketed, but how has that been in terms of the type of talent you can attract, company culture, all that stuff? Really interested to hear that.
there's problems with it. As everything, there's a price for everything. Um, you know, yeah, it's sometimes, yeah, there's someone that we would love to have on the team that's remote, maybe even at like a salary, a beneficial like salary kind of like decrease because they're in a different market. Um, but if I'm going to be like, some of my desire for the office is completely ideological and based around my own personal desires. Um, I I like to think of my life in movie scenes, and like everything that I do, I like to think about it as a movie scene with like a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if I was like watching a movie about our startup being built, I would rather watch a movie where there's an office than not an office. And if I'm being honest, the decision to have an office, like 50% of that just comes from like my like personal like, oh, like this is a better like movie scene. There's like, people downstairs like right now like chatting, laughing, it's fun, like. And I think you can build internet companies and be 100% free, and like sometimes I have those desires and feeling like I'm like stuck here when I could have all of the freedom in the world. um, but I think a lot of really good things come from constraints. um, and like bootstrapping is an example of that. You give yourself budget constraints and you have to get hyper creative, and you have outcomes you wouldn't exist if you had like unlimited capital. Same thing with an office. It's like you give yourself this constraint, it takes some things off the table, but it puts other things on the table that you can't even come close to fathoming without the office. And so I think it's a trade off in a million different ways, but I enjoy it. I think everybody else enjoys it. And like, luckily, we're based in Canada, where in our businesses, like our office is based in Canada. Our main denomination, of like collecting revenue is USD, and um, there's a pretty favorable exchange rate on that, even for Canadian talent. So that's another piece. And then the other thing, like very tactical, Canada has like a lot of really good research and development for software specific tax grants. And so for me, hiring Canadian developers is highly incentivized. And so there's probably some really great developers in Portugal that would be great for the team, but they're not going to be in office. So we're losing kind of just like that whole culture piece. And then we lose on the grant side. So like, that's like another reason, but you don't need an office to do that, but it's like a supporting reason to like hire Canadian developers specifically.
I mean, it's good. It's good. A good like initiative by the Canadian government as well, to incentivize like entrepreneurs, right? People who are building businesses. And I like the the thing about creating a movie. Maybe that's something you should actually, or maybe you already are. But there's build in public, but I haven't seen many people create like a movie about the. I mean, there's Silicon Valley, but I haven't seen anyone create a movie about building a startup. I think that like would be a winning concept on YouTube, like a series of bootstrapping a startup.
I think it'd be so good. Like I think it's like a huge distraction, but could be like one of those like super creative like acquisition channels. Like I would love to do it. Like if I met like the perfect guy to like run that right now, I'd pull the trigger on it like immediately. Like if I found like the perfect videographer, like wants to do it like documentary style stuff. He's in my office right now. He's like, I really want to just come in, do this for a year. I would pull the trigger on it immediately. So if anyone's watching this that like lives in Toronto that wants to do that, I'd be so down.
I don't think you'd struggle. Like there's a guy who's blown up on YouTube at the moment. I'm going to mess up his name, but it's Dan or Daniel. And he's doing like POV style vlogs. And I'm pretty sure he has a full-time videographer just following him around. I don't know the situation. I guess he just pays him like a salary, literally follows him everywhere. And he uploads like weekly vlogs, and he's blown up to like, he's exceeded over 50K subscribers now, I think. Just absolutely blown up. I mean, your version of that, probably a young person, like a kind of intern situation, just turn up to work every day and film.
No, 100%. Like it would be super cool. Another thing I've been wanting to do, and I actually had dinner last night with one of our customers. They have like a really sweet operation, like an hour outside of Toronto. And I just want to start doing like walkthroughs of like our customers, like businesses, like I think that would be super cool content. Almost like interview style, but like very casual, like walking through, showing like how they run their business, the people behind their business. I think would be like really cool to start highlighting. And so, yeah, it's like a very top of mind thing for me. I think would be really cool.
Nice, another cool side project. So last question here.
Yeah.
So, what I know you said you're working on like a new product. What maybe the answer is that, but what's something that you're waking up every day and working on at the moment? What's like a big priority that's on your radar?
So we have this very large moonshot marketing campaign that I won't like spend much time. I'll summarize it. It's a contest. So that's like what I'm spending most of my time on right now. Started about 2 weeks ago. I've got like another like 2 weeks to put into it, and then we'll launch 2 weeks after that. That's taking up a lot of my time. And then we're building the new version of Spider specifically, which is like the new product, which I think will allow us to go up market in a lot of other industries outside of e-commerce. And I've always felt like our business has the opportunity to go two directions. One direction is to become a SaaS platform where people are clicking and dragging every single day, which is kind of where we're at right now. And I'm going to continue down that path. But I've always been very aware that we have the opportunity to become a big data company. There's been a lot of really large data companies built around competitor advertising analytics. And they, like one, for example, Moat got, acquired by Oracle for $700 million. SEMrush went public, mainly focused around SEO. And so I think the new version of Spider is still very much forward-facing customer. But the back end of it, there's going to be a lot of sawdust that's created where we can start creating some IKEA furniture that is like big data and start selling it like that.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, interesting. And it's also a beautiful moat for the business, right?
Yeah.
What separates from competitors. Cool. All right. Well, cheers for the conversation. Appreciate it. Is there anywhere you'd like to direct viewers, to check you or Foreplay out?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm most active on Twitter at Foreplay Zach, Z-A-C-H, Foreplay.co. And then I also have my own podcast as well called Done This Week. I do it with my friend actually named Steven, who has another Bootstrap SaaS company. Kind of just talk about like business stories, interview other Bootstrap SaaS founders. And so yeah, if you like podcasts and stuff like that, that might be interesting to you. Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I know we haven't like caught up in like a while now, so it was super fun. And yeah, let's chat more often.
Good stuff. All right, cool. Well, I'll put those links in the description. All right. Cheers, Zach. All the best.